In February 2026, the United States and Israel launched Operation Epic Fury, a sudden, precision air campaign intended to dismantle Iran's strategic capabilities. The first objective was the immediate removal of the regime's core leadership, including Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. Simultaneously, waves of munitions targeted the nuclear infrastructure buried deep beneath this mountainous terrain. By every standard military metric, targets destroyed, bunkers penetrated, and leadership removed, the operation was a success. The hardware performed exactly as designed. But in the logic of asymmetric warfare, a flawless tactical performance can hide the fact that the broader political situation has become unmanageable. Strategist Robert Pape spent 30 years simulating this exact scenario for the White House. His research identifies a recurring pattern: the smart bomb trap. It begins when policymakers see satellite imagery of cratered buildings and falsely assume the enemy's capacity to fight is broken. This illusion of success locks a nation into a widening conflict. They proceed as if the war is over, only to find themselves without a clear exit as the situation spirals. The trap triggers the moment the first bomb falls, because the act of bombing itself changes the risk tolerance and political goals of both sides. Precision air power doesn't eliminate a geopolitical threat. It replaces a stable status quo with a volatile series of unpredictable crises. The first response to a precision strike is immediate, asymmetric retaliation. Even when massive strikes level industrial complexes like Natanz, the physical destruction of buildings rarely translates to the total destruction of the regime's will. Command and control structures are built to survive these strikes, allowing the leadership to remain operational even after their primary facilities are gone. Iran's immediate priority is to prove they retain an offensive capability, typically by launching massive ballistic strikes against U.S. allies like Israel. Once the adversary demonstrates they will not capitulate to air power alone, the attacker is officially committed to a protracted, multi-front war. As the conflict matures, it moves into what analysts call horizontal escalation. Iran widens the geographic scope of the war, targeting energy infrastructure in neighboring states. The economic burden is heavily skewed. A $2 million U.S. interceptor targets a $50,000 Iranian drone. This creates a financial drain that air defense systems cannot sustain indefinitely. This strategy focuses on vital energy choke points, most notably the Strait of Hormuz. By deploying smart mines and anti-ship missiles in these narrow waters, Iran can effectively halt the 20 million barrels of oil that transit the strait every day. The loss of 20% of the global oil supply would likely push crude toward $130 a barrel, triggering a wave of global inflation. This phase of the conflict weaponizes the global economy, turning a regional military exchange into an international financial crisis. The most dangerous phase arrives when the coalition loses visual confirmation of the nuclear material. Before strikes, intelligence pinpointed Iran's 400 kilograms of enriched uranium. Bombings pulverized the facilities, but the nuclear material survived, scattering into hidden locations. Tracking capabilities immediately dropped to zero, creating an intelligence blackout where gaps in knowledge outweigh the facts. Without cameras or inspectors, the coalition can no longer verify if or where a warhead is being fashioned. This lack of visibility creates strategic panic. To secure this dispersed material, there is only one option left. The attacker is forced to deploy infantry to the ground. The attempt to solve a nuclear threat through air power alone mathematically drives the coalition into the exact ground war they intended to avoid. In the wake of these strikes, the political incentives for the surviving Iranian leadership change. Previously, pragmatic guardrails prevented the assembly of a functional weapon. The bombings, however, removed the incentive for such restraint. Since the regime is already facing a lethal campaign, they calculate that there is no longer a diplomatic reward for staying away from a bomb. They move toward the North Korea model, viewing a functional nuclear arsenal as the only absolute guarantee that the regime will survive. The unintentional result of the air campaign is that Iran now has an existential reason to weaponize every kilogram of its remaining uranium. This tactical focus on Iran has severe consequences for global security arrangements. As the U.S. bogs down in a regional ground war, it is forced to pull resources and attention away from other critical theaters. This concentration of power in the Middle East creates a strategic vacuum. Competing powers, like China and Russia, can expand their influence into Asia and Europe without facing American resistance. The crisis erodes the trust of Gulf allies, who increasingly question if the United States can still provide the security it once guaranteed. By falling into the smart bomb trap, a superpower risks trading its global standing for a local stalemate, accelerating the shift toward a multipolar world where American influence is no longer the deciding factor.